First things first, Giles.
Yes.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. We just arrived in Amsterdam. Looking forward to a show at the Paradiso tomorrow night, and then on to one more radio show. Then we're back to the UK.
Well, before we talk about your latest record, I'd like to go back to the beginning quickly. You were born, I believe, in Jersey.
That's right. Yeah.
What kind of musical upbringing did you have?
Well, Jersey's a cool place to be a musician and grow up. You know, the island's got money, and it's got a vibrant art scene. So I played saxophone and I played violin, and suddenly I found the harmonica on a school trip to Toledo in Spain. I picked one up in a shop, and the weekend I got back to Jersey, there was an African-American blues duo, Cephas and Wiggins, playing at our local art centre. So I got to hear the real thing straight away, you know, which is amazing. And I just fell in love with it.
Do you remember what stuck out to the harmonica when you first saw it?
It was the sound more than anything. It's just got such an emotional, cool sound. I was just blown away by it.
And I believe at first you wanted to be an illustrator, if I'm correct?
Yeah, well, I've worked as an illustrator. I've worked as a graphic designer, but I think that you know, they're very sort of. It's very sort of you're by yourself, you know. There's quite a lot of solitude involved, but I think I'm more of a performer, and I enjoy that connection that you get with the audience, and also I like the travelling as well, you know, going to new places, meeting new people. So I sort of gravitated back towards the music.
So when did blues kind of make his introduction?
Well, from the age of 14, you know, I was listening to a lot of jazz up until that point, sort of vintage stuff, you know, 30s and 40s big band stuff. So I really like the you know, sort of like the horn sections and arrangements, which is interesting because that influenced a lot of the classic harmonica players. And then suddenly, bam, I heard the blues, and that was it for me. You know, I was completely transfixed by it and just became 100% focused on it.
But that's quite interesting because you, at an early age, delved into jazz, 30s and 40s. I would imagine it's not the most accessible music for a youngster. So what kind of, and with the blues as well, what made it stick out for you?
Do you know what, I've thought about that a lot, and I think it's the rhythm. You know, I think it's that sort of swing rhythm, the swung rhythm, and I think that's what made it for me, looking back. You know, and I remember also thinking I like blues singing as well, you know, because it's very basic, you know, it's almost not singing at all, you know, and I just love that sort of, it's almost like rap or hip hop. It's almost like I don't care, I'm just, you know, it's like the singing is non-committed and cool, and then all the emotion comes out in the playing, you know. So that's what, you know, that's what I liked about it. It just sounded cool, and the rhythm sounded cool as well.
And so you were 14. How do you proceed from something like that? You fall in love with the music style. You learn to pick up to play the harmonica. So how do you go from there? Do you start playing bars? Do you?
Yeah, well, I started playing. I reckon I started playing live about when I was about 16. So 2 years later. I started playing in local blues bands. You know, pretending I was older than I was to get into the bars. And I won a school music competition playing Hoochie Coochie Man by Muddy Waters, you know. So suddenly I just, you know, started getting offered local work and stuff. Pretended I was when I learned how to play, I pretended I was in sort of like the Muddy Waters band or the Sonny Williamson. I mean, backed by these musicians and learning how to improvise, you know. So I'd learn their solos and then do my own version of those solos.
And you mentioned two big names, Sonny Williamson and Muddy Waters. So were those the top two for you, or was it?
Yeah, well, the top two harmonica players, Little Walter and Sonny Williamson. You know, and they still are really, because I think that in terms of blues harmonica, they're the pinnacle, because they combine really amazing technique, but with emotion and art as well. You know, there's a lot of art in their playing. It's not just a series of notes. You know, it's telling a story, it's painting a picture. You know, it's got a real artistic quality to it.
And well, interestingly, I think you played with Muddy Waters' son. So did you discuss it with him?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it was Mud was like, he sounds so much like his dad. It was incredible, but really it's a lot of, I've discussed it with a lot of people that actually played with Little Walter, or met Little Walter, or played with Sonny Boy, or met Sonny Boy. Mud wasn't really part of that generation. He met a lot of them in his dad's basement. But just last night, for example, I was talking to Mac, on Saturday night I was talking to Mac Arnold, bass player with John Lee Hooker, and Muddy Waters. He's on a couple of their albums. In fact, one of the songs on one of those albums influenced Start a War, the slow blues on our new album. So it's great to talk to him, and it's just great. You know, you build up a picture of these artists through these, you know, through what other people say about them, and also on YouTube, because when I first started there was no internet.
Sure.
You know, but now you can see, and you know, there was no footage available of Muddy or of Little Walter or Sonny Boy. There was nothing. And then suddenly, as you know, as the internet's grown, you can see every single legend, save one or two that died just before they got filmed in Europe. You can see all of them on stage, and you can see how they moved, how they interacted with audiences, you know, the charisma that they had, you know, and it's fantastic.
And well, I'd like to go into this Star of War then, because you mentioned it. How did this song come about? Because
well, we based that. I've been doing a version of that song for years. We based it on John Lee Hooker's "Never Get Out of These Blues Alive" that was on his album Live at the Cafe A Go-Go, which this guy Mac Arnold was you know, played on, and we were just going after that slow sort of ponderous blues groove on that track. And a lot of our stuff is, you know, we look at older songs and build up from them, you know, and do our own version, you know, especially the grooves. This whole record started with grooves and we built up from the grooves.
Is it important, like you say, to pay respect to these traditions, but then also to make it your own?
I think with blues is deceptively simple. So if you start putting too much structure in there, it seizes up. I think the closest thing to blues, although maybe not as emotional and melancholy, is funk. You know, so someone like Maceo Parker or James Brown, where you've got a repeated figure, and it goes on and on and on, and it sort of hypnotizes the audience, you know, or the listener. So what you've got to do is you've got to respect the tradition. So the way these people were playing, how they were putting across the emotion, what they were trying to say. But try and do it in your own way as well. So try and add bits of your own personality and your own style.
And did you find this? You mentioned you started playing the harmonica at 14 and started performing at 16. Did you find your style or your voice early on?
I think that I'm at my strongest when I'm playing Chicago blues, you know, and those rhythms in Chicago blues, and that emotion. And I've done that ever since the beginning. And I've veered off. I've done different sort of projects to try and go in different directions, but I always keep coming back to that. And that's the music that when I play in front of an audience, that's the music that really grabs them, you know.
And also you mentioned that early on you saw yourself more as of a performer. You didn't want to do the solitary thing. So once you started performing, what was that like?
Well, blues is amazing because it's so structured. If I was playing in a pop band, my job would be to present a song the same again and again and again in front of live audiences. So it's got the same structure because people respond to the structure, you know, the verses, the choruses, and how the whole song structure works together. With blues, I can change the tempo, I can change the dynamics, I can do everything like that in front of a live audience. So I can sort of feel the audience and create in front of the audience. I mean, you know, it's like I'm, you know, making a pot or something, or painting a picture in front of the audience in real time. So the song it's a variation on the song rather than exactly the same song. So it means that you've got an instant connection, and you can get very strong responses from the audience because you're reading the audience and sort of manipulating them a bit with the music. If you know what I mean.
What was one of the better nights you've had recently?
We've had a great tour up until now. I mean, but just for example, we played in Eindhoven on Friday night. So a lot of when we come over and do a festival, a lot of the sets are 45 minutes long or an hour long. Right. We played for 3 hours. Okay. Our first set was an hour and our second set was an hour 45 minutes, you know. So almost 3 hours of playing, and the whole place just went crazy. Because again, it's, you know, we can keep a song going for 15 minutes. If the audience are dancing and into it, we can keep a song interesting and going for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Right. You know, just because it's like that James Brown thing, it's hypnotizing. It's sort of the repetition in there, you know.